right, man. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you may find yourself as you listen to this, and you are listening to the show that is rocking the Travis Kelsey. It's another episode of It's a Black and White Thing with A1 and A Ward.
The wild cherry
um,
Pepsi.
I don't know why they did my guy like that, man. Like he's just minding his business. He wasn't
Yeah.
trying to, I don't know what this is. We just started. Oh, yikes.
You know what's funny is I actually put somebody on to Los's podcast like 2 nights ago. I was talking about my podcast, and they were like, "You do a podcast?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "It's just about sports." They're like, "I'm not big on sports." I was like, "Well, I got another podcast you can listen to, and put them on to talk that real." So, I did my charity for the year.
All right. Dope. Shout out to the homies B Reese. Man, I need to see if Reese is actually can free himself long enough to actually, talk about the Chiefs. I know he is Mr. Everything right now to everybody. So I would love to have him at some point, if maybe next week. He said it, not me, Los. I did not say charity. I would love to have Reese on. He's a contributor to Arrowhead Pride to talk about the Chiefs and about this game that's coming up Sunday. All right, we got a good show lined up for you. Got a couple of things we want to talk about. Going to talk about obviously the Super Bowl. Going to talk about I want to talk battle rap because obviously some big news broke this week with the OG Smack White himself, and about the big bag and what that may mean for battle rap, what that may mean for artists, so on and so forth. So we can get into that, but let's start with we're going to start with a sports angle, if you will. So I ran across. Let's talk about the history of the fade. I would love to get a barber to come on and give us an actual history lesson. I might holler at my homie Mano. Did my mouse just die? I mean, nothing's popping up on the screen. I would love to get my homie Mano on to talk about the history of the fade, and we can do that. So let's get into it. So I want to talk about something that I found to be interesting. Hopefully you'll find it to be interesting, especially if you are engaging in this activity, and that is gambling, right? So I happen to see hold on, give me 1 second. Like my mouse is not working. Like I'm not sure what's happening. Like I'm trying to actually pull up this doggone these stats so I can actually see it, but it is not working. Like I can't pull comments up on the screen. It's connected. Man, Apple is letting me down something vicious right now.
It seems like that's a weekly thing, All I'm gonna say is
it's every other week right now. It's every other week. I don't know what's happening. Hold on, I can't even remove myself from the pot, like from the stream. I don't know what's happening.
I'm glad we weren't like wide version because like Norman was just like in the cat litter box over here just doing his thing. I'm looking at him on this. I'm like, I can kind of see him. I'm like, we were in the wide version, but hey, Norman's alive. Let him do whatever he wants.
All right, I'm not going to close out this. Man, like people saying dish the Apple, and I'm like, I can't even put your comment on the screen so I can even see, so the world can see it. Either way, anyway, let's talk about gambling. So, and I'm on my phone, so I can't even look up the stats because I'm using my phone as a camera. So the stats basically are saying that gambling is up in the NFL. Last year broke a record in terms of how many people gambled and how much was gambled. I just saw a stat. We were talking before the show started that 68 million Americans are scheduled to place a bet on the Super Bowl this year. That's a 35% increase over last year, which was a record. And we're also talking about, I believe, over $1 billion. Yeah, there's the notes.
Big enough, the Android, you could actually read it from there because
Yeah. There's been a proliferation of younger people, especially in college, who are gambling. They are taking their funds that are meant for financing their education. They're putting it on these apps, Prize Picks. I almost said Don't Flop because that was FanDuel, DraftKings, and and making these wagers. And it is hurting them. obviously from a financial standpoint, but also in their ability to get an education, because the money meant to go to their schooling is going to these apps. And so for me, as I looked across the landscape of what has happened over the last couple of years, there's a quote from Roger Goodell in 2015 in which he was asked about whether or not the NFL would ever sponsor or be partners with a casino, gambling sites. And he unequivocally said, no, that is not something that we will do. And then a couple of years later, Vegas gets a team, DraftKings, Caesars, all of these sites are partnering with not only with the NFL, but with the owners and with players. So I said all that to say, do you think, oh gosh, I wish proliferation is P or somebody, Trent says spell proliferation. And
yeah,
he
it's
spelled it terribly.
PROLIFERR. Is it double R? I think it is double R.
No R. Just one. No, just one R, not two.
Proliferation. Yeah.
So PROLIFERATION, proliferation. There we go. So I said all that to set up this question. Do we have a sports gambling problem in America?
Good question. So I would be interested to know, if going back 5 years or even a decade, what the average age of like the I guess bettor or gambler would be. You know what I mean? I would say that it probably has dropped 5 or 6 years, or five, in the last like decade. Because I just think about myself, like, I just think gambling for me was always kind of like an older, like older type people thing. It wasn't like once you turned 21, you started gambling. Once you turned 21, you started drinking. Once you turned 21, you started going to the clubs. It wasn't like, I get to gamble now. However, now, with it being at our fingertips in, I don't know how many states right now, but I think it's probably closer to 20 states.
I think it's 30. I think it's 30.
30. Okay, yeah. So, within the realm of just being able to pull up your phone and do it right there. My thing is this: is like the younger crowd is doing it, and anytime the younger crowd is doing something like gambling, it can be a problem, because a lot of times they don't have the finances or the maturity or the wherewithal to know how to handle something as dangerous, as gambling can be. And so, with those numbers being exponentially, exponentially, bigger than last year and the year before, like, I would say that we are definitely trending towards it being, I think what we were talking about earlier off of camera, like a silent, what was it, epidemic?
Yeah, silent epidemic. Yeah, absolutely. So I do think we might have a problem, right? And I think we've talked about this in the past, and I've talked about how I've been annoyed at just how much gambling has infiltrated the sports landscape, right? Like, it used to be when you would watch like a football game, it's a blowout. Maybe someone scores a late touchdown that can be considered a bad beat, right? And you would have one of the like Brent Musburger or Al Michaels go, well, that touchdown is going to be of interest to some of you out there, right? Like, it was kind of like a silent wink and a nod, right? Well, now, I mean, you got shot to Matthew Berry, but Matthew Berry is giving you his picks of the week, right? He's telling you, oh, I'm on Prize Picks, and I'm taking Tyreek Hill over on receptions or yards, or I'm taking Patrick Mahomes under on passes. Like, now you're giving kind of like these stone cold locks, things that you had to call a hotline to do, or go to a website to get, that maybe if at your job might be blocked because it's a gambling content, right? Now you can just pick up your phone and you can do it. And I do think, part of this is competition, right? I don't know if we necessarily think about it like that, but it's you versus the house. Mm-hmm. And you have these interested parties that you're invested in hitting these marks. And so, like you said, with young people, it is something that more and more young people are getting their hands on, not just young people, but people our age, people older than us, people who are professional, who maybe used to call a bookie. Now they can just go to DraftKings or FanDuel or Caesars or, whatever apps that exist and make bets. And I feel like with a site like Prize Picks, I feel like Prize Picks makes it really easy right? Because their whole game is over under, right? Like you think somebody's going to get more or less. That is super simple. And with the competitive nature, we think we know sports,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Any schmuck go, oh yeah, LeBron James is good, or this person is not, right? And so
Right.
you think you know more than the experts. And so this is a virtual pros versus Joes with money on the line, because the people who set these lines in Vegas, they are the pros. Shout out to Mr. Biscuit in the building, man. I can't get this. Like I said, I can't get the notes up, but shout out to Mr. Biscuit in the building. But yes, I think this is an epidemic, and I think this is a true problem. And here's my concern. My concern is that with the general sadness, anxiety, unhappiness that people are experiencing in life and that they're projecting on the internet, that someone is going to bet something on these games. They're going to fall short. It's going to be almost everything they have, if not everything they have.
Yeah.
And they're then going to try to hurt themselves, someone else, or an athlete themselves.
Right.
To me, that is kind of like the final end game, which I hope never happens. But you see what happens so I'll use you as an example, right? Like you had a stretch where I think you might have posted online, like, yo, KD, like, bro, you owe me bread, right? You owe me bread. Like you fell short. Like you were 1 point or a couple of points away. I hit this huge parlay and you let me down, right? And you see that all the time on social media. I mean, you see that from a fantasy perspective, right? And so I feel like you have all these people who are investing in this heavily, and if it doesn't end up with the promise that they thought, that they're going to try to harm people. And I use myself as an example, and I'll let you can have the floor. I think I might have told this story on the show before, but playing fantasy football, I drafted Roy Williams, wide receiver, second round of my fantasy draft. He was on the Cowboys that year. And, I'm thinking he's going to have a banging year. He stinks up the joint. And I never forget, I watched him drop a couple of passes. One might have been a touchdown. And I get online and I start Googling Roy Williams' address. And this is when these things were a lot easier to find, because I'm like, yo, I'm pulling up and you about to run my fade. And listen, I didn't have anything I didn't have money on the line. It was just my pride. Like I didn't have no bet, no prize picks, no parlays, no over unders, anything on the line. It was simply my pride was hurt because Roy Williams was stinking up the joint. And at that point I realized, you know what? Maybe I should quit playing fantasy football. And I had retired from all my leagues until we started talking crazy online on Twitter. And that's how When to Go Home was birthed, was us talking crazy back and forth about who knows more about football and da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, man, like I said, that's me with nothing on the line. I can't imagine someone who's putting $500, $1,000 or et cetera on the line, losing it. And now, again, this is just another thing that's gone wrong in their life, and they're looking for someone or something to take it out on. So that's my spiel, man.
Yeah, I know. Like on the document, you have like the question: is there a such thing as gambling responsibly? And that's an interesting question, because I tend to look at gambling the same way you look at kind of like drinking and doing different things, like in moderation. I don't necessarily think it's entirely a bad thing, but man, responsibly. The word gamble doesn't even sound like a responsible, word. You know what I mean? Like just the verb itself means like to risk. You know what I mean? And I don't know that that's a responsible action is risking. So that's kind of like kind of a way to look at it. But yeah, I would just say like, man, like. You and I went to Vegas for the first time ever. What's it been like? How long?
It'll be 10 years this year, 2014. It'll be 10 years.
So 10 years ago, And I'm sure you're okay with me saying this or whatever. But when we get back, we find this website like Bovada, right? And we spend time on this website that it's not an app. It's not anything you can really like. You have to go through this website. half of my debit and credit cards wouldn't even deposit any money into the account because it came off as this like offshore transaction. And then to get your money, if it was like they had to mail you a check and you'd have to wait like almost like 20 business days to get a check, And so we were gambling on something like this, because it was just kind of fun. It was like we went to Vegas for the first time ever. We was at the sports book, like, oh, I got to get a little bit more of this, to the point to where we were willing to risk getting our debit cards shut down, for fraud. And of course they were mailing checks because they didn't want you to ever take the money. They didn't want you to be like, never mind, I'm just going to use it. But anyway, I say all that to say, it's like, it's designed, for them to win and you to lose. Like, that's what it's designed for, And so that's why all of the biggest and brightest lights in those buildings and everything in Vegas, and they're up 24 hours a day. And, it's like you're walking around and you're looking around like, I'm paying for this. Like right now, I am paying for this, And so I don't know that like gambling responsibly is a thing, because it's definitely designed for you to lose, and it's a risk. So I don't know that that's like an existing thing. I look at it more so as a game, like I look at it as a video game, or as something that I would pay to go do that I think is fun. I enjoy, of course, would I love to win? Yes. But I enjoy playing fantasy football because it's fun throughout the year. We put in $100, somebody gets paid out at the end. That's a gamble, you know what I mean? But it's fun to do, I enjoy betting on certain games and different things, and it makes me watch those games, and it puts some kind of like extra like fun incentive in, me watching the game, watching the plays. I enjoy watching sports. So I look at it a little bit more so on the this is fun side of it, rather than I really need to get paid out here,
Yeah.
And so as somebody who like, bets $10, $5 here, there, on every week, like it's always something that I'm like, okay, if I'm at the bar, I want to go throw $5 on a papa shot. I'll play papa shot. I want to go throw $10 on a pool table. $10. I want to go put $10 on a parlay. Now I'm watching this game, counting rebounds. All right, come on, Jokic, I need 3 more. Like that's kind of how I look at it, in the context. And so, of course, yeah, like you said, you get those, 17 leg parlays you missed by one because Kevin Durant, but I would say the most responsible way to gamble is to look at it that way, not to look at it as like a lucrative income, like to bet as like I need to make more money, but to look at it as like a way to kind of, test your knowledge for sports and get to watch different games different ways,
Yeah.
But it can be responsible. Listen, I mean, the other night I lost like $25, right? And I was irritated about it. So now, boom, now it's hit my emotions, right? So it's hit my emotions. I'm irritated about it. I'm up writing. It's 2 a.m. And I look up and I'm like, the Samsung Vipers are playing against the LG Skyscrapers in Korean Basketball League. And I'm literally like, well, my phone's Samsung. So Samsung's going to win. You know what I mean? So I thought I'm trying to win my 25 back. I'm betting on Korean Basketball League that I don't know a player's name. I don't even know how long the quarters are. I don't know if there's a 25-point shot in that game. I'm not sure. There could be a completely different set of rules. But here I am, trying to win my little $25 back because it hurts your pride, that you lost, you know what I mean? And so that's what's very, very difficult and very, tough to navigate through, because a lot of people that have those gambling issues don't know when to stop, and think that the next one is the one that's going to get them, the one that's going to, oh, I got this next one, or, and with anything, that's dangerous.
Yeah. And I mean, like, shout out to Mama Ward. She said, no risk, no reward. And her point is it's not a black and white thing. And I think there are shades of gray to it. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Smoke Kings TV in the building. I think to me, that's the thing though, right? It's like those early stages, especially like early on, like you hit like a hot streak, right? You place enough bets, at some point you're going to win. You're going to have a hot streak, right? And so then immediately after the hot streak comes the losing streak.
Yeah.
And now you're chasing, right? So it's like, my thing was early on, I would place bets on the morning games, and then based on how the morning games went, then I would place bets on the afternoon games, win or lose. But then, like when you have like a parlay, a 6-leg parlay, and you hit 5 out of the 6, and that 6th one is just like, I ain't never betting on the Falcons again. Like I told myself last time, don't do it. Don't trust Matt Ryan. Here I am again. So now you're like looking at these afternoon games and you're like, yo, bet. Like I got this 3-leg parlay, right? And so like you just end up, like you said, it's a competitive thing. It's your pride, and now you're chasing. And I think one of the great points that they made when talking about, in particular, the college kids, but I think this applies to the adults as well. Like, you don't, when someone is on drugs, they're substance abuse or something like that, you can tell, right? There's a physical change in their makeup, right? Their cheeks, bones get sunken in, weight loss, weight changes.
Eyes.
Right. When someone is addicted to gambling, like, you don't know.
Got a clue.
They look, I mean, granted, their mood might be different because they're riding the wave of the game, right?
Yeah.
But like, there's no physical change in them. So they could be gambling and giving away their entire life.
Yeah.
And you won't know it until they either call you and open up, or until you get that, yo, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? Like, they lost their house, they lost their home, their marriage is over, their relationships, they've severed relationships because of all these things. And you're just like, yo, like, I just was with them, everything seemed to be cool. And so, like, I would advise people, if you got folk who are like, not granted, you got people who are really good at it, but if you got someone who is, heavy into it, I'm not saying you got to check in weekly, but every blue moon, just ask, yo, how you been? Like, how you been doing on your bets, whatever. Because like you said, that could be something that people are hiding and dealing with. And look, I make the joke all the time, like 1-800-bets off. You know what I'm saying? But like, find you a counselor, find someone you can talk to who is certified in these things to help walk you through these things, to get you off that narcotic, if you will. Because like, once you get in that lane, man, it can be very hard to get out of it. For me, I was always a risk averse person. So like, I never really bet crazy sums of money. I might have bet over $25, maybe 3 times, maybe. I was always a $5 guy, $5, $10, $15 guy. And for me, the losses are what got me out. I'll share this quick story. We can move on. I had a 9-leg parlay on the NBA. It's like a $5 bet. I would have netted $1,300, $1,400. All 8 legs hit. Little bit of concern in some of those 8 legs. I get to the final leg. Kings, San Antonio. This is the end of this is 2014. So this is the end of the Duncan era.
So this is on Bovada.
This is on Bovada, end of the Duncan era. 13.5-point spread for the Kings. All they got to do, just lose by 13. This is not the Kings we know now, but the lottery bound every year Kings, stinking up the joint Kings. And that game hovered around 13, 15 all game long. And then it finally got to the fourth quarter, and Tim Duncan and Ginobili and them go on a run, and they blow the game open. They win by like 22-25. I may have placed at that point maybe one more bet on the NBA, because that loss was like so crushing to me. It was like, yo, that I was, again, in Vegas, you can never count the bread until it's all zeros. But I was already making future bets in my head with that bread, because I know I hit. I knew I was going to win. Like, they made a run and got it down like a 10-point game. I'm like, oh yeah, we good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Don't overthink it, Sacramento. Do your thing, And they ended up losing the game, and I was like, yo, man, I'm done. Same thing with football. Like, just like I said, the Falcons burned me enough times. It's just like, bro, I can't do this no more, man.
Yeah,
I can't.
I said it last night in a Twitter Spaces. And I'm not saying that this is what you should do or what you shouldn't, but like, if I've ever bet big money, it's always a Tennessee game or like a Chiefs game, because if you know me, what I do is I say to myself, if I could pay the refs for the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, how much would I pay them, right? If it was guaranteed the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, how much right now would I budget out of my account to pay the refs? I take that number, and then I bet it on the other team. And so I bet it on whoever's playing the Chiefs so that when the Chiefs win, I can feel like, all right, I paid the refs and they won. When they lose, I got money. You know what I mean? Like that's literally how I do the emotional hedge every time. If it's a Tennessee game, the same way. All right, cool. Man, I remember last 2 years ago, the Hendon Hooker game, the torn ACL, literally we're a 22 and a half point favorite against South Carolina. They're like plus 870, I think, to start the game. If all we gotta do is beat South Carolina, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, it might even just been South Carolina and Vanderbilt. All we gotta do is win those 2 games, and we're headed to the college football playoff. We got 1 loss, we beat Alabama. I said, all right, cool. I put like $250 on South Carolina. Bro, like that's what I was saying. Like I'd pay $250 because I know we're gonna beat Vandy. It came out with like close to like $2,000 or whatever, and just Hendon Hooker tears the ACL, we lose. I'm so mad at life, but I was like, well, at least I got this.
Like you got the money to dry your tears.
Yeah. What Royce the 5'9" say? Money doesn't buy happiness, but I'd rather cry in a Bugatti or whatever, or something like that.
That's Swoop. That's Swoop. Shout out to Swoop.
Yeah, I think Royce said it first, but shout out to Swoop.
Oh, okay. My fault. Yeah,
Swoop,
money.
But
Swoop,
no,
that's his hook.
But yeah, no, I definitely, we have a group chat or whatever, and I know that we post some of our bets and stuff in there, and I'm thankful that we do have a semi level-headed crew of guys that'd be like, hey, yo, you good? Yo, Ward, Zhang Wu, table tennis. You don't need to be betting on her. Like, go to bed.
Yo, I mean, like, shout out to the people who can make a living. I think one of the wildest things.
Just so y'all know, I'm not making racially insensitive jokes. These are real people that I've bet on before.
yeah. Listen,
I want y'all to know that. Like
it was too on the money for us not to get that part, right? Like, you just didn't pull that name out of thin air. Like, oh yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, he's definitely placed a bet on Zhang Wu
I'm not
to win a table tennis match.
Yeah.
But like, I think the wild thing of being in Vegas that first time was like, talking to people, right? Because I'll say this about the sports book. The sports book is so dope because like people are so friendly, right? They're showing you their betting slips. We're watching the game together. It's a communal experience, right? And so it was a black dude. Black dude was like, yo, yeah, man, like I live here. I moved here X amount of years ago. And he's like, this is my side job. Like I got a day job. I think something like IT, computer program or whatever. But he was like, yeah, man, I made like, 4-5 a month. And he starts showing me his betting slips. And he's like, yeah, I'm betting on hockey. He's like, I can't name not one of them, but I make money off of them. I'm like, wow. Like me, like I said, I'm a sports guy. I think I could do that. Right.
Yeah.
And so, man, I don't know. Like again, make sure you check in on your people.
The other thing was too, and we can switch the topic in a second, was, when we went to Vegas, it kind of goes back to do we have a gambling problem, and is there such thing as gambling responsibly? When we went to Vegas, one of the most difficult things and one of the like really sobering things, of being in Vegas was walking into casinos, seeing all the money, right? People just like millions probably going, and then walking out and literally walking over like homeless people that are like right on the sidewalk, like urine here, litter, trash, just people with absolutely nothing, and you're like stepping over them to go in here and watch people throw money away. You know what I mean? And that was a really sobering thing. And that's kind of the picture of gambling. You know what I mean? And so like when you're looking at it, you're just kind of like, man, like I understand that there's some kind of fun and entertainment in putting this money here and watching games and stuff like that. But, I'm sure there are other ways that are better to be using that money, because there's a real world out here of people, that don't even have that ability, that don't even have a phone to download an app.
For sure. Yeah, man. Like I said, make sure you check in on your people, man. Make sure they're doing good. Like I said, hopefully, here's the last thing I say, and we can move on. Hopefully I doubt they are, but the people at DraftKings, at FanDuel, because again, they are the reason why we have this access. Obviously, the governments who have bear some culpability in this because they have legalized it, like I said, in 30 states. But hopefully there are some safeguards and some type of counseling that are being put in place to help people. And yes, gamble. If you want to gamble, do so, but make sure you do as much as possible, do so responsibly. And if you find yourself spiraling, man, delete the app, bro. Like, delete the app. Do what you got. Get accountability. Do what you got to do, because I hate to see somebody out there bad because they made some decisions with their bread and it didn't turn out well for them. So y'all let us know what y'all think, man. What y'all think about that? Do you gamble? Do you think that our society has a gambling problem? And if so, how should we address it? And if not, I'd like to hear the other side of that too. Hit us up at Brains and Bars on Facebook, IG, and Twitter. Shout out to Austin.